All right. Good afternoon, college football fans, or if you're on the West Coast, I guess you got a little bit of morning left. But we are here on Friday afternoon. This is Ben Belden, the host of this particular show, talking obviously about the most recent Notre Dame news today. Notre Dame landed a four-star wide receiver commit, Jaden Greathouse, out of the great state of Texas. So we're going to touch on that, keep it brief here today, and then kind of move on and enjoy the rest of our weekend. But if you are new here, you are on the voice of college football. That's Mark Rogers TV. I am Ben Belden. I'm one of the many people who talk Notre Dame football, both on the main college football channel and on Notre Dame's college football channel here at Mark Rogers TV. So make sure you check that out at any time. Again, I am Ben Belden. You can follow me on Twitter at RealBBelden. That's Belden. And so, I do Notre Dame post game channel over there. I do, from time to time, some things over, like I say, on both channels. So again, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Follow me, all of that stuff. Okay. So today, just about a little over an hour now, at 1 p.m. Eastern time, Notre Dame landed the commit of wide receiver Jaden Greathouse out of Westlake, Texas. A guy that is I believe he is recruited in his class. He is 113th ranked recruit nationally. A four-star guy, 6'2", 215 pounds. And obviously he is in the class of 2023. I got to be honest. This is a great pickup for Notre Dame. One that, along with the recent commitment of Rico Flores from California, this is one to me that is a true signification that Notre Dame recruiting is going in the right direction, as if we didn't think that already. A couple other things to note real quick before I kind of dive into what I've seen on just a little bit of Jaden Greathouse film and how this impacts Notre Dame altogether. This puts Notre Dame, if you look at Rivals or 24/7 Sports, puts them back to number one in the recruiting rankings with probably 4 or 5 more commits to go. That pretty much, in my opinion, solidifies Notre Dame's going to end up at the very least with a top 5 class or so. We have 10 people watching right now, and that's why I said 10 right there. But so a great pickup for Notre Dame. As I mentioned, 6'2", 215 pounds. If you read a little bit about Jaden Greathouse, he's your kind of stereotypical bigger type of receiver. At different times when he was in his younger years in high school, there was the thought that he might be big enough to eventually become kind of a flexed out tight end. Obviously has kind of built his body in a way that he's going to play the wide receiver position at Notre Dame. And again, like I say, just your kind of stereotypical big receiver. He's going to, he's plays in the highest level of Texas football, which is just tremendous to see. So anyway, like I said, he is going to join a pretty loaded 2023 class that already has commits Braylon James and Rico Flores, as well as another recruit, a Bell, that has been recruited as a corner. But if you at some point you needed him to play wide receiver, or go both ways, or kind of just be a slot guy, or I guess talking about Micah Bell here, a trick play type of a guy that you throw out there, throw him a reverse or something, could also kind of factor into that wide receiver room a little bit as well. And it all signs point that Notre Dame is not done in the wide receiver room. Hopefully later, in this recruiting cycle, lands at least one more wide receiver commit. Perhaps Ronan Hannafin here, maybe pretty soon. We'll see. So what that means for Notre Dame going forward, I think there's no secret here that Notre Dame in this 2022 season is, a little bit thin at the wide receiver position. If you take a look at Notre Dame's depth chart, they're going to expect big things from Lorenzo Styles and, Deion Colsey, Braden Lenzy. Those guys have been in and around the Notre Dame program now, at least for a full year. Braden Lenzy, obviously much longer than that. Avery Davis, we're sort of waiting to see, what his status is for, the opener, if he's back and healthy for the opener. To play a full football game against Ohio State. He's going to man that slot position. And like I say, you'll see Styles and Colsey and Lenzy and maybe Jaden Thomas and maybe a little bit of Tobias Merriweather, a true freshman, outside as well. After that, there's not a lot of depth. And, obviously Notre Dame is well aware of that. Obviously, you've got Connor Radigan, a guy that's been around on the roster, Matt Salerno, a graduate student also on the roster. But in terms of, guys highly recruited, top tier level guys, Notre Dame just isn't flush with those at the receiver position. And it's nice to see Notre Dame really prioritize this particular position in this particular recruiting cycle. Because then, obviously, you've got to build depth at that position. Right now, Notre Dame's kind of in a place where, with those 5 or 6 guys that are at the top of that list, Notre Dame's in a good position as long as everybody's healthy, as long as everybody's playing well, as long as things are going well. But right now, I would say that the wide receiver position for Notre Dame is, one where I look at it and just sort of think, like I say, if it's going well, it's going well, but it has the potential to, become real thin, especially given, some of those guys are true freshmen. Some of those guys don't have a lot of experience. Avery Davis is already hurt coming off of an injury and has been injured before. So, not a lot of depth, not a lot of wiggle room. Notre Dame is solving that in this particular recruiting cycle. At the very least, obviously this recruitment of Jaden Greathouse, who, by the way, if we're talking about great names, how great is Jaden Greathouse? I mean, that's an all-time name team right then and there, in my opinion. But regardless of that, all joking aside, Notre Dame now has landed 3 stud wide receivers in this particular class. Obviously already has the commitment of Cam Williams in the class of 2024. And, is off to a good start there, especially given that they have the quarterback in the class of 2024 with CJ Carr as well, assuming he does not reclassify to 2023, which has always been a discussion. But as I've said before, nothing real credible other than speculation there about the reclassification of CJ Carr. One thing that I think that is particularly interesting about Jaden Greathouse, when he was, when the things started coming out about his committing to Notre Dame, one of the things that he said was, who is he going to try to recruit to Notre Dame? He obviously has the Texas connection with quarterback Austin Novak, who just received an offer from Notre Dame this past week. And, is somebody that, especially since Notre Dame missed out on Dante Moore, is a guy that Notre Dame seems to really be putting on kind of the full court press to be that quarterback that comes in the class of 2023. And Jaden Greathouse said, that's a guy that I want to be at Notre Dame with me. I'm going to make sure that I recruit him to Notre Dame. Novosad is a guy that is currently currently committed to Baylor. Has also some interest from, Ohio State and some other schools as well, Texas A&M to name a couple. So, last thing that I'll say about Jaden Greathouse real quickly is this, that, as Notre Dame continues to develop this position, the reason that this particular commit is so good for Notre Dame is that, as I kind of mentioned in my kind of scatterbrain start to this podcast here today, I thought, I was saying that, the great thing about Jaden Greathouse is that he plays at the highest level of high school football in the state of Texas, something that's obviously going to be great for, his development, so that when he arrives at Notre Dame, he's going to be, a little bit maybe ahead of the curve when you compare him to some of the other, guys that are really great at football, freak athletes, but are just better than everyone that they're playing all the time. Obviously, Jaden Greathouse is always going to be one of the best players on the field anytime he comes on the field, but he's playing against a level of competition and winning state championships and competing at a high level, which is, which is key because, like I mentioned, Notre Dame does not have the depth at the wide receiver position. Past this year, if you're looking on to 2023 when Greathouse and Braylon James and Rico Flores are freshmen, you're looking at Joe Wilkins, who could potentially come back for a sixth season. Nobody in the class below him. And then Deion Colsey, Lorenzo Styles, Jaden Thomas, Tobias Merriweather, and then this class that I just mentioned. Okay. So the depth thing for Notre Dame hasn't been completely developed yet. They'll probably bring in a grad transfer or two in that wide receiver position. Obviously, then you're going to, bring in Cam Williams in the class of 2024, and I'm anxious to see who comes after him. But the fact that Jaden Greathouse is a player that as a freshman you can probably count on him to come in and play a little bit right away. That's definitely going to be a thing that's going to help Notre Dame, because they're going to need somebody in that freshman group out of James, Flores, Greathouse, whether it be Ronan Hannafin, who, we hope commits here, in this recruiting cycle, or somebody else. They're going to need players that are going to be true freshmen next year to step in and take the spot of, the Avery Davises, the Braden Lenzys of the world. And so I think Jaden Greathouse, along with obviously some Tobias Merriweather, could be those guys that step into those roles. Whereas, Colsey and I think Styles is going to be really good, can be more of a supporting role to that as well. So again, this is tremendous. The last thing I guess I'll say about Jaden Greathouse, I know I said that once already, but I forgot this: 6'2", 215 pounds. I mentioned that earlier. But a guy that has, when you look at him on film, looks to have a college-ready body, looks to have a good frame. Obviously, he's going to continue to build onto that as he moves through his senior year of high school as well. If you watch his film, there's some stuff on there of just him blocking, and he blocks pretty well as well. And if he's putting that on his highlight tape, that obviously means that that's something that he takes seriously as well. With those younger receivers, sometimes, the big thing is, well, yeah, we can put you out there on passing downs and you can run a route and catch a pass, but can you be out there for the run? Can you block? Does the other team know that every time you come on, it has to be a pass play because you can't block anybody? I don't think that's the case for Jaden Greathouse. So overall, another great landings by Notre Dame. Something that, I particularly think is, just a very indicative of the way that Notre Dame has recruited this entire 2023 cycle. Because, obviously it's been thin. Obviously Notre Dame's lost some recruits in the wide receiver group. Obviously Notre Dame has lost some transfers and so on and so forth. And therefore, this particular one obviously shows that, the level of recruiting, by Marcus Freeman and by the position coaches is another step in the right direction. I'm not going to say any names to the negative at this point, but obviously that wide receiver group, Chancey Stuckey has come in here and just taken over that wide receiver recruiting job and done a tremendous job. Done a tremendous job taking that to the next level at a position that's arguably the highest position of need for Notre Dame at this time. So again, like I say, great pickup for Notre Dame. Love it. Jaden Greathouse, great name, great football player. And that's really all I have to say about this one. So we had a few people tuning in and out. Read a lot of your comments. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to keep this one short. Like I said, we were just talking really about Jaden Greathouse and his impact today. Again, if you're new here, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thanks for dealing with my rambling there at the beginning. It's always, when you're out of a little bit of practice here, it's always a little bit intimidating to get on here, go live, and then get started. But once I settled in there, things went a little bit better. So make sure you're hitting subscribe. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you're doing those things to support Mark Rogers TV. I'm Ben Belden. Like I say, you'll hear me on here a whole awful lot more, hopefully, as we can continue to do more Notre Dame coverage as we get closer to college football season. And I think that's it. So thanks for joining today. Go Irish.